Hey, Leslie from Generations Revival here. I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you for purchasing a DIY kit. This cheetah Hello Fall door hanger is super cute. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the steps are kind of repetitive, but it's a longer video, so hang in with me. Let's get started. So unpackage everything. You've scanned your QR code on the sticker to get to this place. This design that I'm unveiling right here is just a tiny bit different than the one that you got. This was actually one that I created before I ordered these, just so that I could get a head start on creating the video. But basically you're gonna stain half of the board, kind of eyeball with, where exactly in the center it is. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of stain the top part. This is water-based stain, so it wipes on, wipes off. So I just give the top half a good coat. You don't have to stain it. You can stain the whole thing. You can paint the whole thing. This is just how the example is. It's really however you want to do it. So paint that stain on there. Once you get a good coat on it, you're gonna wipe it off with that rag. You don't want to let it sit. It'll get gummy and it won't dry. And if it sits, it gets kind of gross and sticky. So once you get a good coat, just take that rag and wipe off all that excess. We're gonna let that dry really, really well before we paint the bottom half, because we're gonna tape off that bottom half. So set that to the side and let that dry. Clearly I didn't wait. I just went ahead and taped it. I can't remember if I stopped the video or not. Yeah, no, see, it didn't stick, so I stopped. So set it aside, get your paint out, and we're gonna paint the little cutout pieces. So again, this is just a little bit different than what is actually in your kit, but the process is still the same. Take a little bit of that orange. You're gonna cut the tip of the bag if your paint came in a bag. These are laser cut, so they're burned on the edges. You don't have to worry about getting the paint all on the sides. Sometimes with these finer pieces, it's a little bit difficult to get a good even coat. So as long as you use your makeup sponge and dab light layers, really light-handedly, it'll coat fairly thin and you'll build it with a second coat. Your paint won't kind of fall on that edge and it'll stay on that top surface. So the same thing, you're gonna take the white and paint those hello words with the white. Now on yours, the L's are actually 2 parts. So if you kind of hold them up to the fall, you can see where they line up which curve. There actually is a wrong side and a right side of how these are cut. Sometimes you can look at the back side, and the back sides have a little bit more of a burn mark to them. If you can't tell, just kind of hold it up and mock it up as you would if you were getting ready to glue it down, and then you can kind of mark or decide which side to paint. So again, going back over it with a second coat and just real light dabs straight up and down just to get a good coverage. Okay, so back to the round. Now that it's dry, now we're gonna take the piece of tape. You can use Scotch tape, masking tape, painter's tape. You can even freehand it if you want. I just kind of eyeball where the center is. You can take a ruler and measure from the holes straight down as perpendicular as you can, and that can give you an idea if you're level or not. But again, it's the background. As long as it's not crazy off, you're really not gonna notice. So I take the white and I dry brush along that tape line and just basically dry brush that paint on there. The drier your brush is, the more distressed the paint is gonna look. It's kind of a fake way of distressing. If you like more of a bold look, you're going to paint on with your sponge brush or a paintbrush, whichever's included in your kit. You're just gonna paint a second layer after that paint dries to get that more bold of a look. But I like distressed, so I like the unevenness of the paint. It looks really good once all the pieces are on top. I don't really worry about all the splotchiness. I think it adds character and makes the piece look unique to you. Okay, so moving on to the cutout pieces. I kind of mocked them up just to see, make sure I had everything. And again, I got this design, the actual ones in hand, so that's why it looks a little bit different. So ignore those unpainted pieces. We're gonna work on the pumpkin cheetah print. So the pumpkin piece comes off, you can paint that, and again, you're just gonna dab straight up and down, light layers, and dab that paint on there. Once it's dry, it's no longer shiny, you can go back and add a second coat if you want more of a full coverage. I like the distressed, so the unevenness and blotchiness doesn't bother me. It kind of adds character, so that's just how I am. That's how I prefer it. But if you want more of a bold color, let it dry, sponge on another coat. Okay, so the cheetah print pieces. So I start with the oatmeal color and I just paint the whole entire thing. We're gonna build in layers, so we're actually gonna paint on top of it. So I didn't get too worried about these pieces. They're all engraved with where the cheetah print and colors go. You know, if you are really fine detailed and you want to get it exactly in those spaces, use that little paintbrush and you can do so. I had 13 of these to paint myself, so I like doing it this way. It's just how I prefer, and I have a 2-foot rule. If you can't see it from 2 feet on, nobody else sees it. So it's really easy to fixate on these little pieces now because you're sitting right in front of them working on them. But again, just paint that background. I just sponged over. As long as you don't do a really thick, heavy coat of paint, it won't fill those little engraved lines and you'll be able to see where you're gonna paint the next layer. We're gonna use that brown next to get the brown circles and then the black. Yeah, so here's where I actually paint the piece of the kit that you guys got, the same pieces. So again, it's the same thing, just sponging that paint on there. On the fall piece where the little hello sections kind of intersect, you can touch those up with a paintbrush at the very end with that white and just kind of dab on some white with the paintbrush there. It's pretty easy to fill those in. Okay, so now that those back pieces, those oatmeal colored pieces are dry, we're gonna go and add the brown circles in. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're more than welcome. You can totally stay in the lines. But again, we're building in layers, so you cover it up with the black anyway. So I just kind of fill in that brown in that middle section. I cross over to that little area where it's gonna be black because we're gonna paint over it with black. It's not a big deal. And I do all those pieces and just cover a good little chunk of the brown. Again, if it's splotchy, it's okay. The 2-foot rule, you can't see it from past that 2 feet. If you really are type A, you can totally fill in, color in the lines, if you will. But it's totally your personal preference, whichever you want to do. So color in all those lines. We're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna go back over it with the little brush with the black and fill in the other lines. Okay, so those pieces are all dry, and that's just really to ensure that you're not mixing the paint and kind of cross-contaminating it. If you do, just let it dry and then you can paint over it. So here I'm just taking the black brush, kind of a saturated brush, makes it a little bit easier, and you just basically paint on where those engraved lines are. I just kind of use it as a guide on where to paint them. Once you get all that painted and everything dry, you can go over the stem. I did green on the stems here. You can do the stem part green or the swirlies green, and then the stem part stained or black. It's whichever your preference is. The glue is wood glue, so just make sure that you don't use too much of it because it does not dry clear. But you just cut the tip kind of like a piping bag for icing, and you just kind of use your finger to smear it around. At home, you can use soup cans to weight the pieces down. The glue takes about 20 minutes to cure, and then it's pretty permanent. So if you have a little pin nailer, you can use those as well, but it's not really needed. That glue is pretty strong. So if you get a glue, that kind of seeps out, you can take a paper towel or a Q-tip and kind of wipe it up, but just keep in mind that it does not dry clear. And then to put the rope on, you just kind of feed it through from the back, tie a knot, and repeat the same. And just kind of tie one knot, and the tension pulls it and pulls that knot taut. So I kind of go in, add a little embellishments, kind of spruce it up a little bit. This again is totally optional. You don't have to do this. I think it just gives it a little bit of extra flair and extra dimension. Kind of just adding a little bit of a dark black brush and distressing it. And that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, email us, send us a message on Facebook. But again, I thank you guys for supporting small business and supporting me. Take a picture, tag Generations Revival GRDIY. I'd love to see it. Thanks.